Hey, everybody, it's Tracy Hamlin, and I am so excited to wish the Washington Informer 60 years. Happy birthday. Happy 60th birthday. Thank you so much for all the work you've done for the community and for creating such a wonderful and safe platform for independent artists like me to share. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to the Washington Informer. Thank you so much. Happy 60th birthday.
Hi, my name is Trey McMichael, and I would like to wish a very happy 60th anniversary to the Washington Informer and another 60 more of impacting the lives in the DMV.
Wow, that was so special. That was so special. Thank you, thank you, thank you, both of you, for those wonderful, wonderful, kind messages. I know the staff of the Washington Informer is so excited to hear that because, yes, on October 16th, we celebrated we didn't celebrate, we observed our 60th anniversary. We're going to let you know when we're going to have a celebration, and we're going to hopefully hear those voices again and see those faces in the place where we will actually, like I said, celebrate 60 years. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, and former WIN TV team for pulling that together. Geez, this is really special. So again, let me just start like I normally do. Hello and welcome to Let's Talk on WIN TV. I'm your host, Denise Rollard Barnes, publisher of the Washington Informer. And as I said, yes, this week, the Washington Informer celebrated 60 years of publishing in Washington, D.C., 60 years of providing news and information to the African American community in Washington and beyond. We are a trusted source of information, highlighting important issues and events that impact our community, the Black community. The fact that we have evolved from a weekly print publication to a multimedia platform outlet shows our ability to adapt to changing times. And our website, social media presence, and digital channels allow us to stay relevant. We hope, because that's what our commitment is to you. The continuity from my father to me, and to now my sons and other younger staff members of the Washington Informer demonstrate our dedication to preserving the Washington Informer newspaper's legacy and commitment to our mission of serving the African American community. These 60 years are a testament to our enduring impact and the Washington Informer's importance in the world of journalism. Okay, so that was a lot to say, just to say, we're here, we have a mission. Our mission is to serve you. We want to make sure that we are serving you. So we're glad that you're here with us today. We always want to hear from you, and we want you to be a part of the history and legacy of what we do. Before we jump into our discussions today, I want to thank you for your continued support and remind you to grab a copy of the latest issue of the Washington Informer if you haven't done so already. I like to show this. Bam. And guess who's on the cover? My dad and me. Isn't that something? Both of us. But this goes back. Don't laugh. Don't laugh. Yes, this was pre-locks. This is the Afro days, short Afro days. But my dad died in 1994, so this was long before that period. But it was so nice for our editor, Misha Green, to put that on the cover. And we want you to want to remind you to pick up this edition if you haven't done so already. And if you prefer to read our online edition, visit our website at WashingtonInformer.com. Remember, that's WashingtonInformer.com. And to receive our publication directly in your inbox, along with daily news updates of our exclusive e-newsletter, WIN Daily, be sure to subscribe. It's free, and you'll never miss out on important news and information that we gather specifically with you in mind. And as you watch today, don't forget to share this broadcast on your social media platforms to spread the word about the Washington Informer. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Threads, Nextdoor, LinkedIn, and YouTube for more and continuous updates on news and information around and beyond the DMV. And speaking of YouTube, subscribe to our channel at Washington Informer TV. That's all one word, no spaces. Washington Informer TV. You see it right here on the screen to catch up on any Let's Talk episodes you may have missed. I want to make sure that you see them. We've been doing this. We're celebrating the Informer's 60th anniversary, 60th, Chevy, but I think we're kind of like into year 5 of Let's Talk. This was a program we did. We, as you know, we call it our COVID baby, because folks couldn't get out and get newspapers, and we wanted to bring you the news that we were continuing to cover throughout the pandemic. And here we are still producing Let's Talk. And we're so glad that you are with us. And so there's some episodes back there that you may have missed. And we want you to be able to know that you can go to our YouTube channel and see them. Your support helps us to continue providing valuable news and information for our community. So I want to thank you for your continued support. So do I need to remind you all? I hope not, that we have under 3 weeks, approximately 12 working days left before the November 5th general election. We have a lot at stake, folks, in this election, and your vote is important and greatly needed. And that's why today our guests are here to remind us to vote your future. Joining us are Sarah Graham, Director of Communications for the DC Board of Elections, who'll guide us through essential election information. We've also got Deidre Brown, Chair of Vote No on Initiative 83, and Makia Green from Make All Votes, who will be here to talk with our education and political reporter, Sam P.K. Collins, about Initiative 83 and how this initiative could reshape politics in Washington, D.C. And Washington Informer fellow Jada Ingleton will host congressional intern Tariq Gopal, and I think it's Zeiss Leader. He'll tell us the name. I just don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but he's the co-founder of this organization, and Vote DC's Tavon Blair, and HBCU Director of the Fair Election Center, Dylan Sellers, will be here to discuss Dylan. Let me say that right. It was Dylan Sellers to discuss HBCU and Gen Z election engagement. Folks have been talking about, one, how we're going to get young folks out to vote, how we're going to get independents out to vote, how we're going to get Black males out to vote. All of those things are things that I'm sure that they will be talking about, and we want to hear from them. Jada also will speak with Maya Martin Cadigan, Executive Director of PAVE, which is Parents Amplifying Voices in Education, about ballot topics, particularly in DC. So before we bring on our guests, we normally do our news broadcast. Curtis Knowles says, Denise, the show is so packed. We'll get to that next week. So that's what we're going to do. So it's my pleasure right now to bring on Sarah Graham, the Communications Director at the DC Board of Elections, to give us information that we need, Sarah. It's right up on us. Welcome to the show. And, all of us, most of us, we'll talk about that, should have gotten our ballots by mail by now, correct?
Yes, I do hope so. Nice to join you as always.
So, bring us up to date. So we got the yellow and white envelopes. They have the ballots inside. It's time to cast the ballots, correct?
Yes, it is. You can, this election, like we did, we've done previously, we mailed all registered DC voters a ballot. Those started mailing in September, and they'll continue throughout the month. So don't worry if you haven't received yours yet. If you're wondering where it is, you can always go on dcboe.org and track it. But you should make a plan. If you don't have it by November the 1st, you should make a plan to vote in person. We'll talk a little bit about how you can do that in a minute.
Wonderful. And so I want to not only voting in person, but registration, because some people may still need to register to vote. Is it too late to do that?
Luckily, it is not. So in the District of Columbia, while our mail and online voter registration process has closed, you can still register in person here at our offices at 1015 Half Street Southeast, Suite 750. Or even if you want to wait until early voting or election day, we do same day voter registration. Just be sure if you come same day to bring a proof of DC residence, and that can look like an ID or a utility bill. And on our website, we have a big long list of what we take as proof of residence, and you can find that at dcboe.org/register to vote.
Wonderful. And I know that you all, as you're planning for this election, I mean, and what comes before that, are looking at what happened, or at least what the media has been reporting about what happened in Georgia. And those long lines of folks that are doing, I mean, over 300,000 people. I heard it's a record of folks who voted early in Georgia. What do you expect, or what are you all anticipating here in the district? And are you ready for it?
We are always ready to welcome voters at any of our voting centers. And also, I think it's great that we have options for folks to use their mail-in ballot. And those can be sent to us 3 different ways. You can drop it in the post. You can mail it via the Postal Service. You can drop it in one of our 55 mail ballot drop boxes. They're located all over the city. Or you can bring it to a vote center when they open on October 28th for early voting.
Okay, but if they're
we also really encourage, early voting. Like get out there
right.
early, send your ballot in. We've already seen a lot of people take advantage of our mail-in ballots. I looked this morning. We have numbers on our website, and we have over 32,000 people, or 32. We already received 32,000 ballots here at the BOE.
Is that now? How does that compare to past years?
I actually don't know. I mean, obviously people are more, more tuned in this election as they are with most presidential races. But, we just really encourage everyone to, make their voice heard and, utilize all the options we have for both mail-in ballots, but also in-person voting.
Now, I know, folks are probably wanting to actually vote and move on, right? But there may be some people who cast that mail-in ballot and say, "Uh-oh, I don't know if I did that right." What happens if you think you've made a mistake, or you've marked something, or you've even changed your mind prior to November 5th? What are the options, if any?
Yeah, so I think if you've, as I've mentioned, we mail you your ballot at your house. If you think you've received the wrong one, say it has potentially the wrong A and C on there, you can give us a call here at our voter services team. And that number is 202-727-2525. And they can investigate and potentially reissue you a ballot. If you make a mistake on one too, say you're filling it out before you send it in, you can also call us and we can have your ballot reissued. And then if you're voting in person and you make a mistake, you can always go up to any election worker and they can cancel that ballot and they'll provide you with a new one. And you can use up to 3 ballots if you make any mistakes in person.
Right. And so for those mail-in ballots, you drop them in the mailbox. Is that how that works? Or are there drop-off boxes? Where we put?
Yeah, there's 3. Yeah, all of the above. There are 3 different ways that folks can get their ballots to us. One is to just drop it in the mailbox, USPS. They can use one of the 55 mail ballot drop boxes that are around all around the district. And you can find those locations on our website at dcboe.org. You can also find them in our voter guide, which will be arriving in your mailbox soon if it hasn't arrived already. And then also during early voting and on election day, if you want to drop off that ballot at any of the vote centers, you can do that as well.
Sarah, what there's a lot of questions about people wondering whether their vote really counts. And, some would say early ballots count more than same day voting. Is there any truth to that? How would you, explain that to people about, which ballot is more effective if
You know,
there's a
here at
such
the
thing?
BOE, we just encourage to folks to vote and cast their ballot in the way that's most convenient for them. I think, you know, having our, you know, our vote center model, which means you can vote at any vote center here in the District of Columbia. You don't have to vote at the one that's, say, closest to your house. So say you're on the way to the grocery store and you want to drop off your ballot, you can do that, or you're going to the library, you can drop it off if there's a mail ballot drop box there. You know, I think giving people options to vote conveniently is really what we strive to do here in the District of Columbia.
I guess the question is every vote or every ballot counted?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Always.
All right. That's yeah. You know, there've been some questions about that, and so I wanted to hear it from the, you know, authorities' mouth that yes, every ballot is counted. Wonderful.
I will say it again. Every ballot is counted. Yes.
Wonderful. And then for election day, give us the details about that. When will the polls open? When will they close? And if someone needs, you know, help getting to the poll or voting,
election day is Tuesday, November 5th. Our vote centers, there's 75 of them. They open at 7 a.m. and they close at 8 p.m. And I want to remind folks that if you're in line at 8 p.m. on election day, you still can vote. So make sure you get there before then. You know, voters can go to any of our vote centers, and they're located all around the city. We really encourage folks to kind of make their plan before election day. And that can include using your mail ballot or voting early. And if you have, as always, if you have any questions, we are here to help. You can go to dcboe.org. Right now, we have a really cool dashboard on our website or our homepage that has all of this information. You can see sample ballots there. You can see a list of candidates. You can see where you can, you know, vote center locations, mail ballot drop box locations, and all of this also too is in our mailed voter guide.
Are you all looking for any volunteers to help on election day?
Surprisingly, and I guess this will kind of answer your question about interest in this election. We we had a outstanding group of people that have asked to be election workers, that we're actually not accepting applications for this election. But there is another election coming up in 2026. We are always thinking ahead. So if you're interested in being an election worker, we are always taking applications. And that also a friendly reminder to any young folk that maybe are listening to this, high school students can serve as election workers as well.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, Sarah Wynn Graham, thank you so very much for being with us today and sharing this information. And you know, it's heating up. It's time. Yeah. You know, we're almost there. So, thank you again.
Of course, thank you for having us.
All righty, take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye. So, I think now we're getting ready to kind of jump over to Sam Collins. Sam, are you there?
Indeed, I am. Peace.
Wonderful. Glad to see you. You know, we've got an initiative on the ballot. There may be folks like me that are still trying to figure out what is this Initiative 83. And we know that we're going to be voting, but we want to figure out, you know, what we're voting for and what it all means to this election or future election. So I'm handing it over to you to talk to your guests, Deidre Brown and Makia Green.
Without question, give thanks. Sam P.K. Collins, education and political reporter at the Washington Informer newspaper. Over the last couple of years, or especially since the last at-large election, there have been many discussions about Initiative 83. Before we bring on our guests, I would just like to read what Initiative 83 dictates. We have ranked choice voting in open primary elections to Independent Voters Act of 2024. If enacted, Initiative 83 would implement ranked choice voting to allow voters to rank up to 5 candidates according to their preference in each contest for any office other than political party offices. It would also permit any voter who was not registered with a political party to vote in the primary election or that voters choosing for all offices. This initiative will not be implemented unless the DC Council separately chooses to appropriate funds for the projected cost. So there you have it, Initiative 83. It combines ranked choice voting and open primaries, two relatively controversial topics. And with that being said, I'm going to bring on our two speakers, one speaking in the affirmative and one speaking in opposition. We have Makia Green, who is in support of Initiative 83, and we also have Deirdre Brown, who is in opposition to Initiative 83. Welcome, Ms. Brown, and welcome, Makia. Very, very nice to have you on the show. Many thanks. So before we get started, each of y'all will have a minute to just explain your position. We didn't get to choose who goes first just yet, so we'll play a little game. I'm thinking of a number between 1 and 10. Who can guess?
I'm gonna say 5.
I'm gonna say 7.
Okay, it was 7. Okay, Makia. All right, by all means, you have 1 minute to explain your position in support of Initiative 83.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Makia Green. I'm a Ward 7 resident and a community organizer for Black Liberation. And I support Initiative 83 because it is about making politicians work harder for our votes and ensuring a more representative, equitable system. We keep hearing arguments from people who benefit from the status quo, but I'm here to tell you that I'm here for people for the system isn't working, right? We know that we in Ward 7, about maybe 65% of voters, our votes ended up not counting. And so we need ranked choice voting so that more people, not just independents, but independents who are young people, who are people of color, who are working class people, can have a say in the taxpayer funded election that happens in our primaries. I've been a longtime support of Initiative 83 back when it was Rank the Vote, when we were just a group of neighbors who were coming together to say our current election system isn't working. And in order for DC to be a district that people can stay here, that people can thrive here, we need an electoral system that reflects that. And so I'm in deep support of Initiative 83, of ranked choice voting, and semi-open primaries.
Give thanks, Ms. Brown.
Good to see you. Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm the chair of Vote No Initiative 83. We are a grassroots organization that was formed to educate the public about the truth and facts about Initiative 83. Make All Votes Count DC has been spreading propaganda like in their name, Make All Votes Count. Well, you just heard the BOE, Sarah, say that all votes are counted in our current system. However, under ranked choice voting, the way that they wrote the legislation, because the Board of Election does not write the legislation, the proposers of the initiative did. On page 2, there's definitions for an inactive ballot. An inactive ballot is when you overvote, undervote, or skip a vote. And then on page 4, it says that if any of those things happen, your vote is not counted for, and it uses the word any, A-N-Y, any candidate. And so under ranked choice voting, research shows that votes are cast out. And in particular, it normally is those of people of color, seniors, and those with disabilities who are able to complete the ballot without doing overvoting, undervoting, or skip voting. So that's the reason why we are asking people to vote no. Thank you.
All right, much appreciated. So we can jump right into it. The floor is open. If Ms. Brown wouldn't mind going first, what's your level of engagement? And this is for both of y'all. So what's been your level of engagement with the community? What are you hearing from the community as it relates to Initiative 83?
We have been working with the community out. We got established in January. Since then, I've done over 20 or more debates and or presentations, sometimes with the other side, sometimes not, in churches, community, civic associations, ANC meetings, trying to engage people. And what we're overwhelmingly hearing is people are saying that they do not understand Initiative 83. They don't know what ranked choice voting is, and they certainly don't know what semi-closed primary means. And so there is a huge level of education that needs to happen because before people go to the polls. And so we're encouraging people to get the facts before they vote.
Thank you. Ms. Green.
Sure. Yeah. So I've been organizing for ranked choice voting for years now. I think within the last 2 weeks, me and my folks have talked to at least 200 people in the streets, actually going to places where folks are at grocery stores, having conversations with folks, explaining their voting plan, and people understand ranked choice voting. And it's important to name who are these people. Seniors understand ranked choice voting. Young people understand ranked choice voting. 60% of young people identify as independent voters. They understand that this initiative would actually bring more people into civic engagement. So I would say when it comes to community organizing, we're out there in the streets talking to people. And also we have over 145 DC donors. That's about 6 times as much as the Vote No initiative campaign. And that's of course as the last time I checked, because I'm more so talking to people versus looking at people's financials and asking questions there. And then to talk about exhausted ballots, it can be so confusing. But right now, if your candidate doesn't win, your vote is already exhausted. So it can be a little bit of a distraction to say that with ranked choice voting, your vote doesn't count. It's more votes. You have more choice. You have more opportunity to share your preference.
Understood. Follow-up question for you, Ms. Green. As best as you can explain, what was the rationale for combining ranked choice voting and open primaries into one ballot initiative?
Right. I mean, I think a big piece for me when it's a question we get all the time is that more voice, more choice. If we're serious about representation, if we want to talk about taxation without representation, we're going to have to open the door for more people to participate in the taxpayer funded election. Right? 70,000 independents pay taxes and pay for the primary election that they are not able to vote in. So it makes the most sense for us to have semi-open primaries as well as ranked choice voting if we're saying we want to give people more opportunity to get their voices heard.
And what is your response to people who have some sort of fear about Republican Party intrusion on Democratic Party politics?
That is so real. One is to name that an independent is not a Republican. That's the whole reason folks register as independents, because they're not Republicans. I think for people who are afraid of that, I would look at who are the people who are speaking out against ranked choice voting nationally. That's the Heritage Foundation. That's the authors of Project 2025. If you are worried about Republican or conservative interest having an impact in our elections, you might want to look at who are the folks who don't want more diversity and more choice in our elections.
All right, without doubt, and I appreciate that you brought up the national scope, because I do have questions for both of y'all in that regard. I wanted to pivot to Ms. Brown real quick. In regards to low voter turnout, if not I-83, what alternative do we have to increase voter turnout?
Thank you for the question. And I also want to first follow up on some of the comments that were just made, because we can't let falsehoods stand. Once again, as far as the donors, let's talk about the money. Let's follow the money. They have raised over $464,000. 82% of that have come from outside PACs and corporations. The biggest donors being Fair Vote Action PAC and All One God's Faith Inc. by Dr. Broner in California. 100% of our Vote No Initiative 83 money has come from DC residents. No corporations, no PACs in or outside of the city. 3%, the 165 people she said, that's 3% of how many DC residents have donated to their campaign. So we want to make sure we have the facts right on that. Exhausted ballot is different from an inactive ballot. An inactive ballot, as described in their own legislation, is when you overvote, undervote, or skip a vote. Exhausted ballot is a different theory about if you rank all these people and then later as the tabulations are going through, the people that you rank no longer are in contention. Two separate issues. The way their legislation is written, if you have an inactive ballot, you overvoted, undervoted, or skipped a vote, the language states that your ballot is not counted for any candidate, and it uses the word any. We believe that they included ranked choice voting and semi-closed primaries together because they did not think they were going to get a fight. They thought they were going to come in here and do a 2-for-1 and push this through, and no one was going to be paying attention to this. Ranked choice voting has been shown to, once again, suppress the Black and brown vote, those of seniors and those with disabilities. And so the idea that we need to change who is sitting in the Wilson building or who's sitting in our executive office, the question becomes, what are we changing that to? We have a very diverse council. We have a history of having a diverse executive office, including people of color and women. And so this idea that they want to come in and use the system to circumvent and change our electoral system is that's not going to happen without a fight. We haven't had a chance to talk about the independent voters. So I just want to remind people that the primary election is when the parties, the Green Party, Republican Party, and the Democratic Party picks the candidate that represents their values and their platforms and is presented in a general election. So it's a nomination election. And so if you have decided that you want to be independent, you're unaffiliated with any of the parties, you do not get to vote in a Democratic primary, Republican primary, or Green Party primary based on our Home Rule Act. And so this is just an attempt to circumvent Home Rule. And anyone who understands Home Rule and how important it is, because it's the only one sliver that DC has in our autonomy and our overall electoral process. If you understand that, then you know that an attack on Home Rule is an attack on DC statehood. And this is one of the reasons why we are asking people to vote no.
No doubt. So I would allow Ms. Green some time to respond to that question. Well, to that response before we move on to the next question.
Sure. So it's important to know about the fact that when we talk about taxation without representation, again, 60% of young people identify as independent voters. These are folks, we believe that if you pay taxes in DC, you should be able to vote in the most consequential election we have all year. If you identify as an independent voter, I'll even give an example. I organize around criminal justice reform. I work with a lot of formerly incarcerated folks. One of my closest friends, when he got out from 20 years inside, he registered to vote. He was so excited. Everyone, we made TikToks. We were all excited for his first time to vote. He sat down with both of the candidates in Ward 7. He walked up to the back, and they turned him away because he's an independent voter. We're saying to 1 in 6 people, your voice does not count to us. I believe that for taxation, representation, people should be able to vote. And I think that if we're talking about how are we going to bring people in, we can't keep telling them what they can't do. The whole point of civic engagement is to use the system to organize your people for a freer world. You can't keep telling people, oh, your voice doesn't count. We don't want you to organize. We don't want you to talk to your community about what can be different. I want to see a lot different. I've organized for public campaign financing to make sure that that bill passed and that we got money for that. I think that there's so much more that we can do, allowing young people to vote. I think that we could have more seats on the council. We need more representation. We have 13 council members. They speak over a $16 billion budget. We need more voice. We need more say.
So I'm going to play an audible real quick. It's a football term. Now, my understanding is that, of course, I'm speaking as a native Washingtonian. My understanding is that on both sides, there appears to be some out-of-town influence in your campaigns. As far as leadership and vote no, there's some Republican influence. And my understanding is, as far as yes for Initiative 83, those efforts were bolstered with the help of people who live in DC but have roots elsewhere. Could y'all speak to the level of local influence on your campaigns and the degree to which native-born Washingtonians empathize with your cause?
So, Sam, I want to do 2 things. One, I need to quickly fact check Makia. If you go to the polls on a primary or any day in the District of Columbia, you can change your party affiliation the day of. So if you want to mail in your ballot and change your party affiliation, you have to do it 21 days beforehand. However, you can walk in on the day of election in any polling center and change your party affiliation. So no one would be turned away if they were willing to change their party affiliation. But if you're saying that you don't want to be a member of any of the three parties because you do not share their values, then you do not get to vote in their primary nominations. As far as Make All Votes Count started probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it really has ramped up trying to link us to Republicans. Bill Pannell said it at a church event the other day. Kenyatta Smith then repeated it. And then the other night, Brandon McGowan went so far as to say on the record that Make All Vote No on Initiative 83 was working with the founders of Project 2025 and working with the organizers of Heritage Foundation. So I'm going to ask that people not repeat such libel and defamation quotes, because all it does is distract from what the issue is. We are not working with the Republicans. We don't work with Project 2025 or the Heritage Foundation. Once again, we are started as a grassroots organization, mostly with local organizations who have all gotten together, local leaders, and we
Which
are
local organizations?
The Metropolitan Women's Democratic Club, DC Women in Politics, the Federation of Democratic Women, the Women's Democratic Club. I mean, a bunch of organizations, smaller organizations. We're not working with someone in California who's giving us $400,000. We're local grassroots volunteers. All of our volunteers are just that, volunteers, unpaid. We're not paying anyone. These are people who understand the issue and are very worried about their voting rights and their neighbors' voting rights. 100% of our donations, 100% of our volunteers are here in the district. Okay. This idea that you can bring in big money, big corporations, and try to influence our elections is a problem. They're using Black faces as the front, but the people who are running it behind are these people who don't even live here.
All right, let's allow Ms. Green some time to respond to that, if that's cool. Ms. Green, if you can just speak to the degree of support and involvement among Native Washingtonians.
Right. I would say the campaign directors are Native Washingtonians, east of the river Washingtonians. We have, like I said, my shirt is Rank the Vote DC because we're a local coalition that wanted to make this change. We are full of Native Washingtonians and DC residents and people who love the city. I'm grateful to be in this city, and I'm happy to continue to support to make it a space where people can stay here. I think that when it can be really confusing to say, confuse us with other meetings and other events, but let's be clear with the facts. The Heritage Foundation has published, dozens of articles with the same talking points as the Vote No Initiative 83. I actually can't speak to your funding. I'm not going to speak to who's behind you or not. All I know is that I don't support things that the Heritage Foundation supports. I don't support things that Trump supports, or that red states are preemptively trying to pare down. I support things that DC residents have said time and time again that they want. I support things that are going to bring a diverse voting and young people into the election. So I totally understand that kind of confusion, but these are the same talking points as the Heritage Foundation.
I just want to thank Makia Green, representing Yes on 83, and Ms. Deirdre Brown, Vote No on Initiative 83, for joining us today. I really wish we had more time, but alas, that's what happens. If allowed, I would definitely like to have both sides to just provide closing comments, something for us to chew on in the days leading up to the election. Makia, please go first.
I'd love to. I just want to say, for folks that are supportive of Yes on 83, make sure to turn your ballot over, vote yes. When you hear our opposition, when you hear someone talk to you all day about what you can't change in the city, recognize that they benefit from the system as it currently stands. Okay? We deserve change, and we're going to win. So turn it over. Yes on 83, more voice and more choice.
Give thanks. Ms. Brown?
Thank you. First and foremost, I need everyone to go to voteno83.com. We have a 10-minute presentation that goes over the facts about Initiative 83. Listen, I'm not at all concerned about them trying to link us to the red states or Trump or whatever, because anyone who has eyes can see that I, a Black woman in the District of Columbia, would be the last person to benefit from Project 2025 or anything the Heritage Foundation has to say. We all see this as the propaganda machine it is to deflect from the issues. The issue is you should vote no because, one, it suppresses the Black and brown vote. Those are seniors and those with disabilities. Two, we believe that if independents want to vote in the primary, then they should party register. And three, we are against any organizational effort that has over $400,000, 82% of their money coming from outside special interest PACs and corporations. So please go to voteno83.com and get the facts before you vote. Thank you.
All right, many thanks to Makia Green and Deirdre Brown for their time. I really hope that the audience got all that they could out of this exchange. Back to DRB. Many thanks, y'all.
Sam, that was amazing. That was a well-needed conversation. I think it had, it answered a lot of questions. I think it also created a lot of questions. If we looked at the comments, and I think I'm really glad that folks were engaged. But I'm still walking away from this conversation saying, why? I just don't know why. But at any rate, that's I'm going to have to vote on election day, and I'm hoping that we're bringing our voters that are on this, that watch this show, closer to understanding what this is all about. I don't know, what's your feedback from what you heard?
Well, what I'll say is I'm looking forward to after election day in the sense that if in fact Initiative 83 passes, what will the DC Council do? What will Mayor Bowser do in terms of funding it? Because that is the core stipulation. And I've already heard some opposition articulated to open primaries from Chairman Mendelson. It's my understanding that at-large council member Anita Bonds attempted to make some inroads in stopping this. So what is the DC Council going to do? What is Mayor Bowser going to do in terms of Initiative 83? That is what I'm looking forward to seeing. I do have my ears on the ground. I had one more question about how was Ward 8 engaged, because yes, on 83, according to the BOE, there was some contention around the signatures collected in that area as well as in Ward 5, but we didn't have time to touch on that. I'm always very particular about Ward 8, but I thought all in all, it was a good conversation.
Yeah, well, there's always more on the pages of the Washington Informer, where you write every week, and you have your own column that we produce as well, online and in the paper. So keep reading Sam P.K. Collins if you really want to know the answers to those questions. Sam, I appreciate you.
Many thanks. Thank you.
All right. Have a good one.
Yes, sir.
So it's my pleasure now to bring on our next host for our segment, talking to Gen Zers and talking about their engagement in this election. So I'm very excited to bring on Jada Ingleton. Jada, I'm handing it over. I think we've got a spot first, and then it's all yours.
The most important priority for me, my family, is the economy. Prices are high. It's harder to pay bills. It's even hitting Black folks even harder. And really hoping that whoever I vote for, from president on down, is focused on really, increasing jobs, bringing prices down, and really getting a hold of the economy. If you don't vote, you don't count. I feel like with the internet being such a blaze and so many demonstrations, there's so much energy, but one major part of that process, the energy to bring change, is voting. So I think anybody who doesn't think their vote count, they wouldn't spend so much money trying to suppress it or take it away if it didn't matter. Cameron Trimble, CEO and founder of Hippolitics, former White House Digital Engagement Director. My reason for voting is simple. I want my voice to count. I want my opinion to matter. And I want to have a firm control and a part in who helps lead us into the future.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I am Jada Ingleton, and it is my pleasure today to be speaking with a few people who can talk about not only Gen Z's engagement in this election and politics, but also the involvement of historically Black colleges and institutions, a few even out here in the DMV. So I first would like to introduce our three guests, Tyreek Gopal, Tavon Blair, and Dylan Sellers. Tyreek is currently a congressional intern, a self-proclaimed future politician, senator specifically, that we're very excited to hear from. And we have with us Tavon and Dylan. Tavon specifically works with Vote HBCU, and we'll ask Tavon to kind of tell us how to pronounce ex-leader, but either way, it's a very important part of what's been going on. And then, of course, we have with the Fair Election Center, with us here today, Dylan Sellers. So welcome, guests.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So my first question is going to be about, well, let's hear how do you pronounce ex-leader, and tell us a little bit about what you guys are doing and the Vote HBCU initiative.
The way that I explain to people, we are excelling leaders. And so Excel Leader, we are a community of HBCU alumni who built leaders to impact HBCUs and change the world. And so I'm a proud graduate of Dillard University in New Orleans, Louisiana. And we kicked off Vote HBCU back in 2020 when everyone was trying to find a way to engage HBCU students. What better way to do that than have HBCU alumni do that work? And so we kicked off the first ever convening of HBCU students to talk about civic engagement on a virtual platform. And so since 2020, we've been engaging with students. And so we've been on our Vote HBCU tours. We started our tours in 2021 and have been doing them since then. And so this year we went to a 10-stop tour. The goal is to help educate, mobilize, and empower HBCU students to be informed voters. Our work is nonpartisan, so it's important to give HBCUs the option to make that decision for themselves, but then also ensure they have the resources to be informed and be educated about the decisions they make. Jada, we can't hear you.
My apologies. So one of the things that you guys do is the Say It Louder tour, the 10-stop tour to different HBCUs. Can you tell us a little bit about what that process has been like and the mission behind it?
Yeah, so this was actually the very first year that we did 10 schools. At first, it's always has been 1 or 2 schools per year. And this year we finished off our stop at Grambling back in the fall of 2023. And we realized the impact. We merged HBCU culture with civics on campuses. And so Grambling really showed us the importance and need. And they said a lot of organizations don't come out here to Ruston, Louisiana to ensure that we are educated not only on the national elections, but the local and state levels. And so this year we decided to do 10 schools with HBCUs located in Washington, D.C., Virginia, Alabama, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. And so we had 10 students representing each of those HBCUs. They were paid fellows. They traveled to Atlanta this summer for our summit to be trained, understand what the importance of disinformation, misinformation, how to really describe what that is, and then how policy works, but also how to register students to vote. And so all of the students we had in our program, we had about 159 students to apply for the fellowship. We selected 10 students, and those students have been very pivotal in the work that we do. And so we tell the students that to be an HBCU student means to be a civically engaged student. And so that is the entire premise of making Vote HBCU not only part of the 2024 cycle, but a yearly initiative that HBCUs understand that once students are enrolled on campus, they are part of that community. They should have the option to be registered in the community where they learn. And so the tour has shown us that. We were able to register 859 students to vote, and we're excited to see what that engagement looks like on Election Day.
Wonderful. So to that point, I do want to throw some questions. We have HBCU graduates, and myself included, in the conversation today. So Tyreek and Dylan, can you tell us a little bit, coming off of Tavon's point, how, even in your experience, well, Tyreek, with your HBCU, and how it's kind of forwarded you into your own mission with political activism, and Dylan as HBCU director for the Fair Election Center. What can you kind of pick up from what Tavon said that matches the importance of engaging HBCUs in politics?
Thank you for that question. Well, attending at HBCU, specifically Virginia State University, the illustrious Virginia State University, it deeply shaped my relationship and perspective of politics by grounding me in a community that places a strong emphasis on history, identity, and activism. HBCUs are spaces that highlight the intersections of race, class, and culture, and being in that environment made me more aware of the importance of advocating for marginalized communities. It really just strengthened my beliefs in politics, that it's not just about policies, it's really about fighting for equality, justice, and representation for people that have been historically silenced for a very long time. And just being at Virginia State University, I was exposed to like a long legacy of Black leaders and change makers, which inspired me to think critically about how I would contribute to that tradition. And it also made me understand that my identity, being young, Black, and queer, it carries weight in political spaces and where people like me aren't always seen. And that sense of responsibility has driven my desire to push for systematic change and to use politics as a tool for greater inclusion and progress.
That's fantastic. I'm delighted to be on this call. As you said, I'm the National HBCU Director for Fair Election Center. Actually, Excel Leader is one of our stronger partners, and I like to say that like we complement each other well because the kind of work the Fair Election Center does is identify barriers for institutional engagement. We run a program called the Legacy Initiative. We work with 40 different HBCUs across 10 different states, and our whole goal is to support those HBCUs in doing the work that they are historically have already done or are already engaged in. And we work specifically with the administrators. And so trying to support the institution and creating the culture and doing the things that they need to do to allow for the students that like Tavon is working with to excel in the space of learning how to use their voice, how to engage in the process, allowing a space for them to be excited about what it means to be young, Black, and involved, right? And what responsibility that holds when you're coming from an HBCU as a young Black student, making sure that your voice is not only heard, but acknowledged and acted upon. And so at Fair Election Center, we do a democracy fellowship program. We work with administrators, as I said before, to cultivate those relationships, to do the necessary research, and to eliminate silos. And so making sure that HBCUs in North Carolina are talking to HBCUs in Louisiana, the people who are doing the work, because it's an act of love. That these administrators are doing to make sure, because it's not always easy work to do and it's not always safe work to do, but they do it and they do it well, and we try to do our best to highlight them when we see it.
Thank you. And I love one thing that you said specifically, Dylan, about being young, Black, and involved. And, you know, those are two target populations who have been huge in this election, the Black vote as well as the young vote. So I want to segue into that with talking about, you know, what are we seeing? And this is a question for all of the panelists. What are we seeing with these ballot initiatives that Gen Z specifically is having a really big part in? And why are these issues so prevalent now in this upcoming election for that generation?
You got to keep in mind the type of voters that Gen Z students are. This is a generation of students who have experienced global pandemics, the gun law situations happening in their schools, economic crisis. Like, they've seen it all, and so they have been in a space where they could not vote. A lot of them are now 18, or the first election they're able to participate in. And so when you've experienced from elementary school all the way in high school and now being a college student, you want to. That's why our tour is called the Say It Louder Tour, because they are saying it louder. They are engaged. They have more access to digital tools and platforms to really describe what is going on across their communities. So people may think these are like newly engaged students, but this is fuel. They've been thinking about this and wanting to make that voice heard for years. And that's why it's so fired up and they're ready to turn out.
Yeah, I think that the other part of that is, and Tavon mentioned this, but I want to add the part that they lived through COVID, right? And so they watched as this nation showed itself true to how they treat Black people, right? And so this is a generation who is not waiting for things to get better. They want things to get better, and they don't see a reason why it can't get better now. And so it's a very exciting thing to watch these students across the country, particularly with the opportunity to vote for a person who attended an HBCU. It's the first time in history that you have an HBCU grad at the top of a ticket, regardless of how you want to vote or how you're going to do that. Fair Election Center is nonpartisan in the strictest sense of the term. Howsoever, it is a historical moment, and it is not lost on these Gen Z students or what the opportunity is that's set before them.
Yes, thank you so much. I think another ballot discussion that's very important. I think it just comes to student debt reform. I think a lot of us being in Gen Z, I myself included, I'm first generation. My parents didn't even graduate high school. So I'm literally like the first person to even like get an education, and I just got my master's. And I think it just goes back to the fact that thank you. Proud valedictorian of Georgetown University also. So yes.
Say that, sir. Say that.
Wow, excellence, burying the lead.
Thank you. But student debt reform is just one of the greatest things I'm just really passionate about. I feel like everyone should have access to a college education. Granted, in this society, I do understand that some people may feel this type of way, but graduating high school is just literally becoming the bare minimum. And a college degree just opens up so much more doors for you, and it just teaches you so much more things. And I do believe that because of this past administration, college has become a lot more accessible for people like us that are just up and coming in today's market. And I'm so appreciative of that.
Thank you all so much for your answers. And for my last question, I want to talk about, both campaigns. We've seen with the Harris campaign as well as with the Trump campaign, different approaches to this demographic, Black young voters, or even just youth voters in general. So with what we've seen with the different rallies, with the different social media advocacy, how do you think it's been harmful or helpful to that community, in particular with Black men? Because, that's also been a pivotal conversation in terms of voting for Kamala Harris. Do Black men feel like she's offering them enough, that she's standing for what they need? So what do you guys think?
Jada, you trying to get me in trouble?
I
gotta. Fair Election Center is nonpartisan in the strictest sense of the term.
Yes.
Howsoever, I will say the excitement that I'm seeing from HBCU students has been something that I haven't seen for a while. I've been doing this kind of work my entire adult life. So over 10, approaching 15 years, don't ask me my age. But I've seen quite a few of these elections, and to see the kind of excitement that I'm seeing, and it's issue-based, right? And so it's less really about the candidates. It's less about Donald Trump and what he's doing, less about Kamala Harris and what she's doing, even though it's a historical thing. Where do these people stand on the issues that I care about? And that's what these students want to know, and that's what they're voting about. And I think that has been, to the degree that they have been clear about those things, has been helpful.
I think when it comes to messaging, that is the really key thing. So I'm a communications professional, and I understand tactics. I understand when I see from both parties of the message they're trying to come across to specifically young Black voters, especially Black men. And so it comes with a level of intention, but it's also that blurred line of what is accurate and factual information versus what is dis and misinformation. And when people are educated, they make informed decisions. And so what I'm noticing is that people are sharing partial information where it's like, this is somewhat factual, but the way you're telling that story, the narrative that you're framing it in, that is completely incorrect in how people understand how policy works, how, like, for example, the job of the vice president, understanding what that is tasked with. And so it's a really important for organizations like all of us on this call, but also as just people in communities, is having conversations. Don't talk at students, allow them to figure out what issues they care about, and allow them to make their own decisions. But what we've noticed with the young people and like how they understand messages, it comes so fast on social media. So sometimes they may see something they want to comment on, and they want to reshare it, and not knowing you're sharing a piece of misinformation. And when somebody brings you something factual, they're saying, but I saw it on this news platform. And it's like, let's check 3 before you share it out. So they're excited. It's something that we've never seen before, but it's history that is, these young people are part of that. They come from leaders, from HBCUs, knowing that that is the walk of life that we come from our alumni, and these students have the same access to resources to make that change happen.
Yes, and I do appreciate, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I do appreciate you for that response. I think it also just comes to being someone that literally is the first person, even in his entire family, to even like walk across a graduation stage. I think it just comes with meeting people where they are. I think representation shows. I think you really should be actively going to these communities and interacting with people that look like you and are from the same exact communities, because it's oftentimes saying like, yeah, we could be the same skin color, but we ain't never walked the same path in a sense. And I think it just really comes with being intentional with who's showing up in these spaces, and how exactly are we taking up space and making it more equitable, so the line of continuation in the pipeline could continue to go on further.
Thank you all so much for joining me today. Thank you all for your responses, for the work that you're doing with your respective organizations and positions. You spoke about some very important topics, and I hope it's given not only Gen Z voters, but Black voters a lot to think about and consider in the coming weeks. So thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So next, joining us and wrapping up, concluding our show today, I will be speaking with Maya Martin Codigan of PAVE, Parents Amplifying Voices in Education. So Maya, hi, welcome to Let's Talk.
Hi, Jada, how are you today? Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for joining us. You know, we've had a lot of different conversations about DC initiatives that are very important, initiatives to specific graphics. And one thing that PAVE focuses on is education, how it affects the children in DC and these communities. So can you tell us about PAVE, how it started, and why was this an important thing to have in the district specifically?
Yeah, so PAVE, we founded ourselves in April of 2016. So we've been going for almost 9 years. When I started PAVE as the founder, I had a parent board of 8 parents, half of whom were from east of the Anacostia River, most of whom were Black moms. And we were really focused on how do we make sure that education is an issue that parents are having an influence on what policy looks like. And that's because I think a lot of times we think about parents in terms of the individual parent with their child's school, but all of those schools are influenced by the types of policies that our elected officials and our policymakers and our mayor's office and the executive and our council, our state board of education make about what kind of funding those schools receive, the kind of legislation that we put in place to protect students and to make sure that schools have everything that they need to thrive. And so we really wanted to make sure to have a group of parents across the city, that should be a state, that could come together to identify what policy they wanted to see impacted in our school, and not just be in response to that policy, but imagine the policies themselves. So I'm really proud that today we have a network of over 7,000 parent leaders across DC that our parents have led on out-of-school time programs, quadrupling funding for the programs before school, after school, and in the summer, have led on equitable funding in both our traditional public schools, which are DCPS, and our charter schools, so that more money is going to the kids who need it most, have made sure that we have a fully funded school-based mental health expansion so that every single school has the budget for at least one mental health professional. And have done so many things to make sure that our budgets are transparent, to make sure that safe passage to school is a priority as our kids are getting to and from school, and that every ward and community is really built to have great schools for all of our kids.
That's excellent. So with that in mind, what are some of the key issues in this election that PAVE has been highlighting, or that pertains to the work that your organization is trying to do?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that's really important for us is that we're a 501c3, so we do work around getting out the vote and making education a priority issue. We don't endorse any candidates, but what we do say is that education is the thing that drives most parents. As a parent myself, it's the thing I think about every day is what kind of educator and caregiver am I putting in front of my child to make sure that they can learn and grow and thrive. And so really what we think about is how are we making sure that our candidates are thinking about education as a priority issue locally? And then how are we making sure that people know how to register to vote and that parents are able to ask them questions about their education platforms and then make their own decisions about who they want to vote for. In the past 3 election cycles, so since 2020, we've had over 5,000 people actually commit to vote with us, saying that education should be a priority issue with our Vote for DC Kids campaign. We've also hosted 14 candidates forums with almost 800 parents listening in on those to hear from elected officials and candidates about what their education priorities are. And we've also made sure that we are centered in our values, right? We want every child to have equitable funding. We want every family to have the information that they need to make the best decision for each child, because that's different inside of each household about what school is going to be the right fit for that child. We want every child to be able to have the kind of safe, great, and nurturing schools that they deserve. That means the kind of nurses and mental health professionals, a warm and loving and caring environment, school environment, the kind of funding for additional programs that they need in order to thrive, that special education students and English language learners are cared for. And so we really ask the candidates to respond to the parent questions in terms of how are they going to make sure that all of those issues are addressed. And one of the reasons I think that's so important right now is that we're hearing less and less conversation, I think, even on the national stage about education when elections are coming up. And yet it's the thing that drives most parents. And the majority of people who are in DC, like who are going to our schools, they're parents, right? Like we have so many parents inside of the district. We have 80,000 kids in our schools. Our kids, only more than 2/3 of them are not reading on grade level. More than 80% of them are not doing math on grade level. And so it is a huge issue in terms of how are we making sure our kids thrive, not just in our pre-K through 12th grade education system, but then to be able to go on to college and careers that they're going to want to see and be able to be great members of our workforce.
It's excellent. So what do you want, parents that are tuning in today, or even just residents of DC who might be hearing about PAVE and Vote for DC Kids campaign for the first time? What do you want them to kind of take away, and how can they become more involved in your specific organization?
Well, we're really excited. We've got a candidates forum coming up for the State Board of Education races, which, as we know, are non-primaried elections because those are non-political or not political party representatives. And so we're excited to invite everyone to come and join us. You can go to our website to learn more information, www.dcpave.org. We want everyone to see us at the polls. We'll be at 5 poll sites. We'll mostly be in wards 4, 5, 7, and 8. Since we are a mostly Black mama-led organization. So we focus on where the majority of Black voters are. And so we would love to see folks at the polls. Come see us at the ARC. Come see us at Benning. Come see us at Turkey Thicket. And so we'd love to see folks and for folks to commit to vote. Because I think one of the things that's been really important in these past 3 elections is that our politicians and our elected officials are seeing parents really care about education as a priority in the election and as something that they want to hear what their education platforms are. And the more of us that say that, the more focused I think our elected officials and politicians will be on, once they get into office, making sure that education is something that they're putting all their might into.
Thank you so much, Maya. I absolutely 100% agree. Education is so important now more than ever. We need people who are focused on prioritizing children, their needs in schools, and essentially education kind of prepares you for the rest of your life, as you mentioned.
Your life.
So why wouldn't it be a priority? So we're really happy to have organizations like PAVE that focus on those type of things and bring awareness to them. So thank you so much for joining us today and spreading that information.
Thank you so much for having me, Jada.
Absolutely. Have a great rest of your day, Maya. That is all for my segment. I'm going to kick it back to Miss Denise, who will wrap us up for today.
Thank you so very much, Jada. I'm telling you, we've had a packed show and we've had a lot of great audience participation. I told you this I-83 is a really hot topic, and we're really glad that we could bring this on and have some conversation about it, some discussion. And I will say that if you have any more questions about I-83 or any of the conversations we had on the show today, email us at news@washingtoninformer.com. Sam Collins, I'm sure, would love to follow up and answer any I-83 questions that you may have. Jada, who is a writer as well for The Informer, can talk about any questions that you may have with regards to millennial participation, young Black male participation, HBCU participation, or any education issues. She and Sam can talk about that as well. And if you just have questions for us that you want us to follow up on, people that you want us to bring onto the show, topics that you want us to discuss. I know we've run over, but we had a lot to talk about today, and we will have a lot to talk about next week. And we will definitely have a lot to talk about after November 5th, because we want you to talk about what your election experience was, what it was like. So at any rate, with that, I want to say thank you so very much for being with us, for taking this time. We hopefully appreciate all the guests who joined us today. And again, thank you for helping us to celebrate our 60th anniversary. Hey, you know, one of the things I realized that when you turn a certain age, you are that age for a year. So we're going to be celebrating all year long. So keep watching, because we're going to do some things where we're going to want you to be there with us, besides on the screen, on Facebook or Twitter or whatever you're watching us on. YouTube. So until then, have a wonderful weekend. HU homecoming, HU, is this weekend. So go out and enjoy for all of you HU grads or alumni or students. We'll see you there. And until then, have a wonderful weekend.
This is Greg Judge Poole saying happy 60th anniversary to Washington Informer, magazine that served, publication that served our community for years. I can thank Denise Rolark Barnes, who's been a part of that for 60 plus years herself. Thanks to the Washington area audience that has been so supportive in all things DC.
Hey, everybody, this is Michelle Fallon coming at you from the Muses Behind the Music, founder here, as well as artistic director of Children of the Gospel, Washington Performing Arts, Children of the Gospel, and the associate director of contemporary music at the Washington National Cathedral. Hey, it's the 60th anniversary, Washington Informer. That's awesome. All the best, as you have been continuously giving us some phenomenal information and noteworthy news that we have relied on in this DMV area for 60 years. Happy anniversary to you. Happy anniversary to you. Happy anniversary, Washington Informer. Happy anniversary to you. And many more.